of a city excite your brain, or are you drawn to the slow and peaceful calm of the suburbs?
Neuroscientist and author Sarah Baldeo says the answer may lie in our brain genetics. And she's here to tell us more. Sarah, welcome back to The Social.
Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
All right, so I find this fascinating, so I want to dive in and ask you. So you say geographic preference depends on our genetics. Tell us more about that.
So some people are really exhilarated by the cities. Some people are really loving the suburbs. It turns out that that's not just personality or how you were raised. It really comes down to partly biology and partly evolution. And there's a gene called the COMT gene that determines how we react to those two different environments.
Tell me more about the COMT gene.
So there are two different variations. There's a VAL variation and a MET variation.
Okay.
And depending on which one you carry and the combination that you carry, that's going to determine the nuance of how you react to the city versus the suburbs. Not everyone loves the city and not everybody loves the suburbs.
That's very interesting. All right, so how does this relate specifically to the life in the city versus life in the suburbs then?
So as an example, if your combination is MET, you are gonna process dopamine much slower. And so it's gonna take you a longer time to react to these stressors, to this hustle and bustle. If you are a VAL carrier, then you're gonna process dopamine faster. And that's why you thrive in these environments that have all this constant stimuli 24/7. So it really depends on the genetic phenotype that you have.
Oh my gosh. How do we know which type we have?
So it's really cool. There is a genetic test that you can take to determine this, but you don't have to do that. You just have to pay attention to the signals that your brain is giving you. So if you're the kind of person that feels like you're thriving in the city and you love the noise, you love the lights, you love the city life, that's totally me, 100%, then you are VAL. If you're the kind of person who wants to be sitting in your calm, peaceful house in the suburbs with lots of trees, if trees make you happy, then that is probably a MET carrier. And so that is just the clues that you get from your brain every day.
I think they should switch the name of them. Who do I talk to? Think about it. Met is the person who likes the country more, but Met, like metropolitan, big city. How am I supposed to remember this? Huh?
I'm gonna get working on it,
Talk
Jess.
to someone.
I'm gonna do that.
Are you questioning the scientist?
This is
All right,
garbage.
you know what? I just realized that I'm VAL by that description.
Yeah?
So, but I'm wondering, is it possible to be a mix of both?
It totally is. So you can be VAL, which, as I said, means that you're processing dopamine faster. You can be MET, you're processing dopamine slower. We do see people that are a combination of both, and these are the people that have a mix of focus and flexibility when they're in an environment. And so they really can thrive in both environments. I can admit, I don't like camping. 3 days in nature, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I have friends.
You're giving it 3?
3 days, 3 days. I have friends who like 7 days of portaging is their dream. That is, Andrea and I won't be doing that. That's not going to be
Not
us.
a chance.
So we hear genes and then we presume, let's talk evolution. So how did these variations evolve? What do they mean?
So think about, thousands of years ago when we were nomads, we were adventurers, we were traveling. There were certain traits that we needed to prioritize. We needed to crave novelty and excitement. But then there's also settlers. Settlers and farmers, they needed to focus on routine, on social cooperation. And so these different types of evolutionary mechanisms still show up as a biological fingerprint today.
That is so cool.
Okay, but if you think about it, cities are more recent. It's more of a human-made creation. So aren't we all really hardwired to be out in nature with the trees, portaging and all?
Thankfully for those of us who will not be canoeing anywhere, that is a common misperception.
Okay.
So it turns out that cities actually existed more than 12,000 years ago. There were urban settlements. So think like Egypt, Mesopotamia. But the real change happened during the agricultural revolution, which was 6,000 years ago. And what we really saw is all of a sudden, we had two different kinds of people. We had farmers and we had nomads. And the brain really changed 6,000 years ago, and believe it or not, it shrunk. This is not a bad thing. The brain just got better at creating these superconductor channels.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of similar to a computer. Back in the day, computers took a whole room.
Yeah.
Now we've got an iPhone.
Yeah.
And so the brain got better at coding for these different types of environment. And that's why our brain shrunk 6,000 years ago. So not everyone's wired for nature. The Canadian dream of the white picket fence in the suburbs is not my dream. But it really depends on the individual.
That is so cool.
Fascinating.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
what are the signs that you might be living in the wrong environment for your brain?
So this shows up as chronic fatigue, exhaustion, this feeling of being overwhelmed. If you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I am trapped, that means you have the cognitive friction in your brain. Your brain is sending you signals. And I think this is a really big, I'm born and raised in Toronto. I
Yeah.
grew up here. I love being in a city, but a lot of people don't. And so when you feel this sense of I'm trapped in this environment, your brain is sending you these signals. That's why we need to focus on building more kind of complex urban environments where people can find spaces that align to their neurology.
That is fascinating because I'm just thinking, my girlfriend Gail, her husband's always asking me, don't you want to move to the suburbs? And I'm like, I don't know what language you're speaking, sir.
Yeah.
Never, ever.
Not the suburbs, but what if you would want to go like the full way, like country?
On the farm?
Or like just out in nature, having a beautiful
Send
house
someone
in the
to
woods?
come and get me if that happens. All right. So this question. So what if you feel like your environment doesn't align with your brain? Can you rewrite your brain?
So you can rewrite your brain, you can't rewrite your genetics, although gene editing is gonna be possible next year. Let's not go too far down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
We won't go too far down that, but you can build up a neural tolerance. It's kind of like when you build up an acquired taste for food. And so you can do that with your brain by using coping strategies. So let's say a lot of people have to live in the city
Yeah.
because of work.
Yeah.
You can build up a neurological tolerance. You can use coping strategies, but you can't rewire your genetics. You just have to learn to tolerate the environment that you're in.
Coping mechanisms. Sarah, this has been a truly fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. Wow. So her book, 100 Ways to Future-Proof Your Brain in the Age of AI is out now, and studio audience, you're walking away with your own copy. Hey you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.